Okay, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Rose Stein. I work at CIQ, and I am also the community manager at Warewulf. So today is a very exciting webinar for us where we're going to be talking specifically about Warewulf and doing that upgrade process from 4.5.8 to 4.6.4, I believe. Is that right, Jonathan?
That's right. Very precise version upgrade here.
The very precise, exactly. So there have been a couple of sticking points, and that is what has inspired this webinar. So thank you so much for being here, whether you are live with us. Hello. Feel free to use the chat, add any comments, questions, things that you want us to know. You guys can chat with each other as well. That's totally fine. We are very glad that you are here. And wherever you are, thank you for joining us. And if you're watching on the replay, then well, thank you for joining us as well. So we have Jonathon Anderson. He is a technical steering committee lead for Warewulf and also works here at CIQ. So behind the scenes, we've been adding all kinds of cool stuff to Warewulf. So we'll be showing you a little bit of that as well. And then, of course, we have Ian Kaufman with us, new to the webinar. Welcome, Ian. Oh, there, I think, there you
Hello.
go. Awesome. So that beautiful background that he has, he is actually in San Diego. So we can all just be jealous of him right now where, that is not just a picture. It's probably outside somewhere. Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for being here. So Ian works at the university in San Diego, UCSD, and he is an HPC admin and jack of all trades. He says master of none, but I'm leaving that one out. Wait, I just put it in. No, it's out. Yeah. He's amazing and does a lot of really great stuff. Very active in the Warewulf community. So if you're on the Warewulf Slack, which I encourage you to go to the Slack and join, it is totally free. Lots of activity in there. You could definitely bug Ian about Ubuntu. So if you're curious about running Warewulf on Ubuntu, then he's your guy. All right, so enough out of me. We've got a lot to get to today. Thank you guys so much for being here and excited to get started.
Yeah, great, Rose. So should we just go ahead and jump in? Or
That's
so
right.
Okay, so yeah, Warewulf 4.6, starting with 4.6.0, introduced a new command called Warewulf Control Upgrade. We'll demonstrate that a little bit. But people just don't know it exists. And a lot of people, having gotten to 4.5, have upgraded within 4.5, but have avoided going to 4.6 because of the pain of the 4.4 to 4.5 transition. So the 4.6 command, the upgrade command, is explicitly there to ease that transition around updating configuration files and how that's changed. But we also received a question from both a customer and a member of the community recently about how to plan that upgrade, because the command doesn't exist until you have Warewulf 4.6. So we came up with a procedure for that, and we're going to demonstrate that today. So if we can pull up the shared terminal here. So what I have is it's a virtual machine, but in a kind of a home lab environment. I have a demo Warewulf server that's running 4.5.8. And we have one node in this environment, and it happens to actually be running right now. I'm going to spare like switching back and forth between windows to demonstrate. I'll pull that up when we're booting it into the new environment. But we have this running right now, and I'm realizing I've got too many windows going. I have like a whole script and everything, and it's just all stacking on top of each other already. But this procedure that we're recommending for how to trial out your upgrade process, because I don't have it right now, right? If I run Warewulf Control, I don't have this upgrade command right now because I'm running 4.5, is to use Aptainer for it. So we have this this Aptainer definition file. It's really simple. It's just a Rocky Linux base, like a really minimal Rocky Linux base, and then we installed a newer version of Warewulf into it. And so with that, and I've already built it into the CIF. You can see right here. If you're not familiar with Aptainer, it's a container platform built for scientific computing and HPC environments that generates single files instead of kind of the Podman or Docker style that uses a backend registry for this. So we have this container image right here, and we can run it. I'm going to run it with sudo because my Etsy Warewulf location is protected. So we can run it, and here what we're going to do is inside the container we're going to run upgrade config, and it's got two subcommands. One is for the config, the warewulf.conf, your main system configuration, and the other is nodes for your nodes.conf. You need to update both of those files, or there potentially could be changes to both of those files. So the command supports them both. So we can check one, and we get the newer version of Warewulf running in that container, and oh wait, yeah, okay, and we get a new warewulf.conf file here that is updated for the target version. Here we're going to 468, or sorry, 464, 458 to 464, and then
Tongue
we can
twister.
do, yeah, we can do the same kind of command. And when we do this for real, we're getting a recommendation here that we run. Um, oh yeah, we run our nodes with werewolf.conf, and I'll describe that in a minute. So when we're doing our node update, so that's what we're doing here. We're running the same container. We're bringing in our configuration from the local etc and putting that inside the container at /host etc. So this is giving our container access to our werewolf configuration so that it can read it in and then generate a new output for us. And not only are we telling it, here's our original nodes.conf, this is the file that we're updating, but we're also telling it where our werewolf.conf is. And this is because we got this notice here when we were updating our configuration that there are NFS mount options specified in our configuration file. This is a change from 4.5 to 4.6. NFS client mount operations are now part of your nodes.conf file rather than your werewolf.conf server-side file. So this is telling us, hey, if you want those mounts ported forward into the new node-side configuration, tell the node upgrade command where that file is, and we'll do that. So here we've done that. We've said we want to start from our old nodes.conf. Here's our old werewolf.conf. And then two settings that if we don't specify add defaults or replace overlays, then the command will die and will tell us, hey, you need to specify these values. Add defaults is due to a change in Warewulf 4.6, where before there was default behavior that was just kind of baked into Warewulf, and there was no way to change it, or when there was, it was pretty obscure. Now we're representing all of those default values in the nodes.conf file as part of the default profile. So where those were just assumed before, now they need to be set explicitly in nodes.conf. If you have a new Warewulf deployment, the default configuration file will just have those settings in it. But if you're upgrading an old one, you need to tell it whether or not you want to apply those default values now into the file. So we do want to do that. And then the second major change in the configuration file is what I hand-wavingly refer to as the Great Overlay Split. And there's two parts of that split, and we'll talk about one of them right now. The first is that in the past we had a small number of large monolithic overlays. There was like one runtime overlay that we called generic, and one system overlay that we called dub-dub-init or werewolf init. Werewolf supports multiple overlays though, and they can all get combined at runtime. And having them be large and monolithic made it impossible to deactivate portions of those big overlays that you didn't want. So we had like 5 different network configuration systems, for example, in the system overlay and the dub-dub-init overlay, and you couldn't turn off the ones you weren't using. Splitting them out into different overlays makes it so that you can. So we'll go ahead and run this, and we'll get another output. And, we get some information about things that are happening. But, if review them for your local environment. If there's a problem, then maybe you need to make a manual change, but it will call that out. And we'll look at the changes that were made for each of these. So first, we'll look at the changes for werewolf.conf. This is the main configuration file for the server itself. And so at the top, we aren't tracking like an explicit version number anymore. We just look at what's in the file to decide how to parse it. Logging in 4.6 no longer goes to syslog. We just write to standard error, I think, but a standard output stream, and expect it to be collected by systemd. And data store used to be stored up here or configured up here. We've moved that down to, there's a section here where all the paths are configured, and we've moved that down here as data dir down here. This is a no-op. It's just a formatting change just because of the way it got output. But here is the change that we talked about, NFS mounts changing. So Warewulf, among other things, supports configuring the server as a network file share or network file system server. And in the past, you also configured how you wanted your cluster nodes to mount those shares in this file. We can see here, we still configure the exports, what file systems we want shared from the server here, but the mount options have been moved to the nodes.conf file, and we'll see those in our new nodes.conf. This here is also a no-op. It's mostly just getting confused with the fact that container mounts, which is a set of files that you want mounted from your host into the image when you're modifying it, or when you're working with it. This here is bringing in DNS resolver configuration. That has been renamed to image mounts because another one of the larger, more visible changes in Warewulf 4.6 is that we've renamed the concept of containers to images. And this is mostly just it's completely a nomenclature change. It's just a name change. But the fact that we referred to it as container in the past caused a bunch of confusion for people thinking that there might be container overhead or performance overhead, or that there would be container complexity. We still support bringing in container images as your node image, but we've renamed them from container to image, and so this value has also been renamed to image instead of container. I think that's it. This is largely a no-op. This is just something that was that doesn't need to be there if you're not specifying a value, so it got removed from the output. We'll move on to the nodes file, but first I'll look at my both audience and my audience captive here. And Ian, any questions about this so far? This looking okay so far? Okay, cool.
Good job, man. Keep going. Yeah, the image container to image nomenclature change is funny how much people either liked that or didn't like it.
I don't think anybody's complained about the change, and I think for what like the purpose was to reduce confusion, and since we've done it, no one has questioned what images are, whereas we got
good.
questions all the time about the nature of containers. So maybe we'll get more people running into this issue as they upgrade from 4.5 to 4.6. But it hasn't been so bad so far, and the commands themselves still support the subcommand container. Like, you can still type that command. It just changes in the configuration file here. So we'll do a similar diff between our original nodes.conf and the generated nodes.conf and see what has changed. A big thing here is that before we had a smaller set of overlays. Where's the original? Oh, we didn't have them at all because they were just the default, like I said, of course. So before, you wouldn't have even seen what overlays were configured for this default profile because they were just assumed. It was just magical behavior. Now, not only are they explicit, but we can see that they are here as the list of the overlays that were previously included, or the functionality that was previously included in those default overlays. So this makes it easy if you don't want, for example, one thing that people often turn off, there should be, oh yeah, it's in the runtime overlay. This sync user overlay is used to synchronize users between the Warewulf server and the cluster nodes. This is convenient in some use cases, but interferes with others. And in the past, if you wanted to turn this off, you'd have to go modify one of the built-in overlays. Now you can just remove it from your default profile and you're good to go. Same with all of these network configuration overlays. We have one for Network Manager, one for Debian, one for the legacy ifconfig system. Now you can just remove the ones that you don't need in your environment, or move them to other profiles if you need them for some nodes but not others, and mix and match a lot more easily. We're also getting default values For our kernel arguments, the formatting of kernel arguments also changed. It used to just be a space-separated string. Now we have a list of arguments. This makes it easier to mix and match kernel arguments from different profiles and to add arguments on the node without having to re-specify everything that came from the profile. There was one other larger thing that I wanted to go over. So this environment is configured for a two-stage boot. So it uses uh, it uses Dracket, which creates a small node or a small image that will boot first, and then that image is responsible for pulling down the full image and the overlays from the Warewulf server. In the past, in the first deployment of Dracket and two-stage boot support, we implemented that as an alternative iPXE template. So iPXE is our network bootloader, or at least the default network bootloader. You used to change the whole configuration for iPXE. Now we have an iPXE configuration that can do both the default single stage boot and also the Dracket boot. And so instead of having to swap out that template, you just specify a tag that tells it which menu entry to boot. Now, benefit to this is that if you want to test that out interactively, when the node is booting, you'll see a menu with a short timeout, and you can pick a Dracket boot or a single stage boot at runtime as well. But you can just select which menu entry to boot by default. We can also see that here the home file system is configured to mount by default, and this was ported in by our or from our werewolf.conf. So this wasn't in our file before, and because we told Warewulf control upgrade nodes to refer to our older system configuration, it has that preserved here as well. We're getting a comment from a friendly customer and person in the community about a previous colleague who would be glad about one of the changes, hopefully all of them. But yeah, thanks for being here. Yeah. What do you think, Ian? How are we doing? Any questions? Anything not clear here so far?
No, it all looks correct to me. And I think we discussed Ubuntu and Debian will be moving to Drakeit by default. Yeah. So anyone who is a glutton for punishment like I am, pay attention to the Drakeit stuff because you will have to learn to live with it.
Yeah, it's still a little tech preview-y in Warewulf. It all works, it's great, and it ends up solving a lot of problems that people run into with image size limits in a single stage boot. But it's a little bit more manual, and we'll be adding commands to make that easier in the future. But for now, it's a little manual. So we're not just going to upgrade Warewulf from the community. This was installed from the community version. It doesn't really make a difference, but to demonstrate this, we are CIQ. I'm going to demonstrate upgrading it to the package that is built and available from CIQ. So the next step is to get our depot system. Depot is our kind of content delivery RPM management thing. Actually, you would, if you were a CIQ customer, you would largely interact with this through Portal, which is our web interface to it. But the Depot command line utility is how you can add Yum repositories, DNF repositories to your local system. So we just have a package that is publicly available that provides the Depot command. And then from there, I'm going to log in. And I happen to have already specified my username and password in environment variables so that I will not expose them here on the stream. But these environment variables are useful to know as well because these are the variables that allow Warewulf to pull from protected repositories. So later on, I'm going to demonstrate importing an image from CIQ Portal or Depot using the web interface, but if you were doing it from the command line, setting these environment variables is also how you would tell Warewulf what credentials to use to do that. And then one last command here, we will tell Depot to enable the Warewulf Pro repository, and that's where we're going to get our updated Warewulf package. So once the command is run, there's nothing really that secret to anything. It's just creating yum repository configuration file here. And if we looked at that, we would see which repositories were enabled by default. And then there's just a key that's been generated to allow it to authenticate to the repository. But from that, we can just do our normal DNF upgrade. And we could specify a version number here. I'm happy going to the latest that is available, which will be 464. One thing that is a little bit, it's worth noting anyway, this is also pulling in IPMI tool, which is what Warewulf will use if you're doing power management commands, turning nodes on and off. This was an oversight in previous versions of Warewulf. This dependency was not expressed in the package, so now it is, and it's getting pulled in. And then, so we have kind of our updated configuration files here, just for our inspection. But I'm going to run these commands again, and it will do the upgrade in place. So we're upgrading our configuration first, and by default, it just outputs it to the original location. If we look at Etsy Warewulf, well, I'll just look there. If we look at Etsy Warewulf, I have not only like updated files from the package that I could use if I wanted, but I wanted to start from the ones I actually had. But werewulf.conf also has a werewulf.conf-old, and this is where the previous configuration has been saved, and this is the updated one. And then we'll run one more upgrade command here. Oh, I misspelled sudo. So we're upgrading our nodes file, starting from Etsy werewulfnodes.conf. Actually, if I didn't specify that, it would find it in the default location anyway. And we're referring to that old werewulf.conf file to get primarily those NFS client configuration options. And as before, we're telling it we do in fact want to bring in the default settings into this file, and we want to expand any locally used overlays into their new equivalents. Get some information here about the fact that it's updating to the new Dracket configuration, and that it's setting some default values for the network device type, setting it to Ethernet, and same for the network mask, setting that to, I think before it was defaulting to 255.255.255.0, and it's doing that in the background. So from that, my next recommendation would be to run Warewulf control configure -a. So this sets up all of the local services on the local Warewulf server. This -a says all of them. You could specify them individually if you would like, and then restart the Warewulf server. This is something that we've seen at least a couple people miss, where they've gone through all of the effort to upgrade Warewulf, and then nodes won't boot because their Warewulf daemon is still running the older version. So there's at this point, we're running 464 Warewulf.
So I have a question, Jonathan.
Yeah, please.
You called it an in-place upgrade, and then you talked about a restart. So like what is there any difference there? Maybe I'm thinking about the Linux world and how there's a big difference in an in-place upgrade versus having to restart. Is it the same with Warewulf or no?
So what I mean by in place, I just meant that it's updating the configuration file where it is, rather than just generating a new one that I would then have to move into place. So by default, these upgrade commands will, so we'll go from here. All I said was upgrade config. It looked for Etsy Warewulf, werewulf.conf, and then wrote the new version there. And so I'm just saying it's updating that configuration file in place. You do still need to restart the daemon, because, well, it just needs to be the new process. It needs to be running the new version. This would still, I would consider it an in-place upgrade. The alternative to an in-place upgrade of Warewulf would be to set up a new Warewulf server and then switch over to it. Like set up a whole new instance with a whole new server and deploy it separately, and then migrate my nodes to that.
Thank you for that. We do have, we have a question. Go ahead, put it up. Hey, Mac. I can see Werewolf Cockpit Tech Preview in Depot, but would it only work on RHEL and Rocky 9? That's a good question. So Jonathan is going to tell you where the mismatch is
Yes.
there. Yeah.
So it's odd that you're still seeing Werewolf Cockpit Tech Preview. If that's still showing up somewhere, we need to fix that because it's final now, and we're trying to prevent people from deploying the Tech Preview version of it. It does only the Werewolf Cockpit, the web interface, only runs on EL9, so Rocky 9 or anything like that, and that's primarily because it builds against a specific version of Cockpit, the web interface that we're building it into, with an interface in EL9. We are planning out the deployment of the next version also supporting EL10 so that you could run it on Rocky 10, but we are not likely to make a version of the web interface that runs on Rocky 8, which is what most people are asking about when they ask this question. What is worth knowing, though, is that the web interface talks to Werewolf over a network transparent REST interface. So if you really wanted to use the web interface, but you didn't, but your Werewolf server was running on Rocky 8 and you didn't want to upgrade, you could always just run a small virtual machine that's Rocky 9 with the web interface in it, and then configure it to talk to your Rocky 8 based Werewolf server, and that should be just fine. All right, back here to what's the next thing on my script. All right, so I mentioned that we have we have a 2-stage boot, and the 2-stage boot depends on a Dracket image that is built inside of and comes from the image you're booting. That's based on a package. Let's actually show that. So no. Oh, image shell. So we have, this is the image that my node is running right now, Rocky Linux 8, and in here is a package called Werewolf Dracket. This tells Dracket how to boot from a Werewolf server, but it's still running the version from 4.5.8. So we want to fix that. And this is not the greatest procedure right now. I'll start it and then I'll talk through what's going on and how we're going to improve this. So this here is running a command in our image that is installing Depot, logging into Depot, and enabling Warewulf Pro, just like we did on the server. And then it's upgrading the Werewolf Dracket package. Community version, of course, you could just upgrade the package from GitHub or whatever as well. But we want to make accessing Depot simpler from within here. It should be possible, but as I was setting it up today, or not today, yesterday or the day before, I discovered a bug in Werewolf that was breaking our ability to bring the Depot configuration into the image environment and just install the package that way. And something I didn't mention is that I am, in fact, running, I'm running a Werewolf 8. Sorry, there are too many versions and too many names of software. I am running a Rocky 8 image here to demonstrate that we can run a Rocky 8 compute cluster from a Rocky 9 server. But that means that if I were to download that package locally and then try and install it, it would probably work. But technically, that's a Rocky 9 build of the package, and it may or may not be compatible with Rocky 8 when you install it. So this is the most complete way to do that right now. I think we're planning on releasing this process as a blog post shortly after this as a follow-up. So you don't necessarily need to like screenshot and dutifully take down all of these notes. We'll make these commands available. But this is a way to do this, to get the package from the CIQ version of the package from the CIQ system and update it inside of your image. This takes a little bit because once it's done, it's installed all of the packages. It had to update the Dracket image, and then it's updating our image as well after the fact. I actually didn't see it. I guess this is where it said it ran Dracket, and I I expected more log output from it, but it's been working when I've used these commands in prep, so it should be fine. It should just take another moment here, but any more questions? Ian, what are you thinking? How are we doing?
We're doing great. And actually, I was going back to the thinking, positing, and maybe something to try. But I wonder if a reload of Warewulf as opposed to a restart would suffice.
So
Because
a
all we
reload would
need,
be that would be sufficient if it was only updating the config, but because we actually upgraded Werewolf, then
Completely.
we actually do
Yeah.
need to restart the daemon, because otherwise we're still running the old code.
yeah, but yeah, because everything is in memory, and so we
Yeah.
have to flush and refill. Okay.
Tell you what, while that is going, I can in fact do. Can you see this? Can you see the other tab? Oh, you can't see the other tab. That's too bad. Well, if I had this in Tmux, I even installed Tmux, so I wouldn't have this problem. We're mostly done. We've created our image, and then it's compressing now, and then it will be done.
Okay,
Our
so do we need to
next-
fill time? Because I always
No.
am curious about stuff.
You can ask questions, but our next step will be to build the overlays, which is kind of the last thing, and then here we go. And now I can't type.
There you go. Whenever you're ready, we have another question too.
Great. So the last thing I'm going to do here before we switch over to kind of the Warewulf Pro part, I'm going to just boot this system or reboot it, and then we can take the question while that's going. So here is I'm going to stop this and switch over to another window. This is the window for, oh, I think that's the wrong server anyway. One moment. The node, not the server. And here. Thank you. And we will, I know the text is tiny. We're running Warewulf Node 1 on Rocky Linux 8. We aren't reporting the version of Warewulf we booted from, so it's not going to be quite as good as I would like. But I'm going to hard reset this server and just demonstrate that it's still able to boot off of the new, or I'm hard resetting this cluster node. There we go. And we'll demonstrate that it's still able to boot off of our updated server, having updated the software and the image and the overlays, and it will just come up and it will be beautiful. But yes, Rose, you said we had another question.
Yes, I think Christopher. Hi. I noticed that the EL10 package is available in the GitHub site. The last I attempted that with Rocky 10, I had problems with ISC DHCPD no longer being available and being replaced by Kia DHCP.
Yes.
Do you know if the host overlays have been updated to support Kia DHCP?
So we have not updated the overlays to support Kia DHCP. Instead, what we are doing is moving our support, and what we intend to do in the future is use now I'm blanking on what it's
DNS
called.
mask.
DNS mask. There we go. To use DNS mask by default. Warewulf has had DNS mask support nominally as an optional feature for a while, but it has not been the default. And that is what OpenHPC is going to be using for their Warewulf support in Enterprise Linux 10. And so the packages that we have on GitHub now for EL10 are configured to use DNS mask by default. They're early for sure, and there's at least one gotcha with it where DNS mask isn't creating the TFTPD directory properly. Or it's not doing it, and so we need to do it because in the past the TFTPD package was doing that for us. So it's early days for EL10 support, but it's coming. And I see there's another question. I will point out that our server has, in fact, or our cluster node has booted appropriately from our server, and all is well. So
Yay.
we'll celebrate that tiny win. And
good job, Warewulf.
Go back to yay, Warewulf.
Yeah, we're ready for the other question, Gwen. Great. Oh, hey, Mac. Would it be the same process to upgrade from 4631 to 4641?
So yes, that is a wonderful question, and I love you for asking it. Thank you so much. So one of the things, yeah, we've been very specific about the versions that we're using here. That is not because it is a requirement. When we built these the Werewolf control upgrade commands, they we literally went back through the code and looked at every time the data structure that parses the config file has changed and built tests for that version of the config file. So whatever version of Werewolf 4 that you are on, all the way back to like pre-release versions, it will do its best to interpret the files that you have and generate a config that is reasonable today for whatever version you're on, starting from version 460. So version 460 attempts to be able to upgrade from anything in the past, and then any version after that is intended to, our goal is to make it able to upgrade from any prior version to itself. Now, just to be very clear, that does not mean migration from Werewolf 3 or before. That's a very different system, and sometimes people have asked that because people have asked for that ability. They're just so different from each other. Automatically migrating from Werewolf 3 to Werewolf 4 is it's not a trivial operation. It's a better done by a sysadmin. So yeah, a little bit of job security on that one.
Yeah, I'll be
Though it
trying
is
that.
something.
Ian can do it.
I'll say I'll be doing that soon, but I won't
It
be
is
doing
something
it for
that we
Perseus.
at CIQ can offer consulting services for.
True.
But it's not something that we've been able to automate. At
Right.
least not, certainly not completely. They're just too different.
And we got another
So,
question from
oh
Chris.
yeah, great. And I'll go ahead and get this window shared back up.
Okay, great. Oh, yeah, this is a good one. So the other question is related to IPv6. In order to implement it on our nodes in a dual stack configuration, it's fine for us to boot over IPv4. I needed to add net tags for the prefix and gateway, as well as modify the network manager overlay to support this. Do you know if IPv6 support is inbound?
Yes. So our one of the members of the steering committee is both active in OpenHPC, but also works for Internet 2. And I know he has been very interested in IPv6 support from his networking background. I personally am also interested in it. We don't hear a lot of demand signals for it from a professional perspective within CIQ, but I'm continuing to raise and carry the banner of we need to improve IPv6 support. It will probably, a lot of it will still be in tags, but not just core being able to address. My understanding is that in 464, it kind of just behaves appropriately if you just put your IPv6 address in your IP adder field. And I see, Ian, are you doing that in production? Have you just seen it?
I'm not, but the discussions we've had in the steering committee and on Slack,
Yeah.
it has been mentioned that, and this is the favorite phrase that we've been using since Perk, it just works. It is one of those things, it just works if you put it in. I think the only problem or hiccup might be it can't, or dual stack might cause
Right.
problems.
That was
So,
the question, wasn't
right.
it? Dual stack.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have to either stick with V4 or go whole hog into V6 as of now. There will be some testing to see if dual stack can be achieved. But yes, you have to do everything in V6 if you're going to go to IPv6.
So I'm looking at the command right now. We do have an IPadder 6 command that is obvious, or configuration setting. Yeah, thanks. So I am not personally familiar with any problems or successes doing dual stack with just these, but maybe what I will say is we consider IPv6 a thing we want to be supporting. We just have lacked experience in the past with it. So for the most part, Werewolf doesn't need to know a lot about it. It's just generating config files after all. So if that's something you need and you have seen deficiencies, please open issues and we will intend to address them. One thing I did neglect to mention, so I talked about the great overlay split, and that's in 2 dimensions. So one is that monolithic overlays were split into multiple smaller overlays so that you could configure and remove them individually. The other thing that happened is that we separated what we are now calling distribution overlays, the overlays that come with Warewulf or come from CIQ, from your overlays, what we call site overlays. In the past, those were all just mixed together in var lib Warewulf overlays. But now, if you look there, in this environment, I didn't have any custom overlays. You will see that it is empty. When Warewulf installs an overlay now, they are in user share Warewulf overlays. And these are what we call the distribution overlays. If you use a Warewulf command to edit one of these, instead of editing it in place, it will copy it to varlib Warewulf overlays, and your copy will live there. And in this way, if we upgrade Warewulf, it will always only upgrade this system version of it, and your copy will persist. But there is an unfortunate side effect of this that has come up a number of times now that I, at least, am still uncertain how to help people with outside of just raising awareness. If you have done in the past the thing that we don't want people to have had to do, if you modified one of those monolithic overlays in the past, then when you upgrade Warewulf, it will see files that were not modified as part of the package, and it will remove them and then put the new version in the new location. But if you had modified a file, that file alone, the modified version, or if you added something to one of those monolithic overlays, that will remain as a site overlay in varlib Warewulf overlays. And so sometimes people have made like one small change in the Warewulf init overlay, which does still exist. You see it here. This is required for Warewulf to be able to boot your node. But if there's a shadow version of it living in varlib Warewulf overlays with just one file in it, then it breaks the rest of the overlay. So after your upgrade, I recommend looking in varlib Warewulf overlays and see if there's any overlays in there that are accidentally shadowing the now preferred system location. And if there are, compare it against what's in the new overlay and see if there are changes, maybe to fix a bug that we've already fixed, maybe to implement a feature that we've already fixed, because that's happened a number of times. Or maybe it's just something that you do need to port into a new overlay with a new name. So that's just a quick gotcha to be aware of. But the next thing, we want to demonstrate Warewulf Pro and deploying that in our new 4.6.4 environment. Warewulf Pro requires at least 4.6.3, I think. And so we're able to do that, and we used Depot to provide access to the Warewulf Pro packages before. We're coming up on time here, so I'm going to try and do this as quickly as we can. It shouldn't be too bad. We should have enough time. So the first bit here is this Warewulf Cockpit package. We're using the Cockpit server web interface. It's a general purpose, kind of pluggable web interface that's already included in Rocky Linux as a base for a web interface for Warewulf. So we're installing Cockpit, and we're installing a Warewulf Cockpit plugin here, and this makes the Warewulf Pro web interface. And once that's installed, we will enable it, but it'll just take another moment here. Was there any question? Anything? Yeah, okay. I should have had this running already. We were talking so much.
That's okay.
I know what we can do.
Yeah.
I can take this opportunity, and this is an issue. Unfortunately, there aren't I can't do multiple windows shared, but maybe while this is going, I can switch over to this one and talk about what's included in Warewulf Pro. So I think I'm on this window, yeah. And now I'm getting Slack notifications. So Warewulf Pro is builds for Warewulf for Rocky 8 and 9. This web interface that we're installing right now. some pre-built node images and overlays that go with them. So we're currently targeting primarily OpenHPC, Slurm, and OpenPBS as just turnkey cluster solutions that you could install and not have to make changes to the image. You can just enable an overlay and then set tags or set resources to configure how they should behave, and do that all in the web interface. And then we are packing in Aptainer support with that as well, because we wanted to be able to bundle Aptainer into those node images. We're strong believers in containerization for HPC. And then we also are bundling in access to this training curriculum that we put together. We will sometimes do trainings for our customers, but we make the curriculum for it available. It walks you through doing a cluster setup and using the Warewulf Pro bits and installation. A lot of what we're going over here, although I don't think we have a strict upgrade guide. It's more expecting a greenfield deployment. So that's all in there. But my terminal is now done, so I'll switch back over to that. So we've installed Cockpit, and then we need to enable. Cockpit is a little bit different. You don't start the service, you start a socket, and then systemd starts Cockpit when it sees connection on that. Oh man, I would switch over to the web interface to show it, but we'll finish doing the configuration here, and then I'll do that at the end. So in order to use Cockpit, in order to use the Warewulf web interface, we need to enable the Warewulf API. It's disabled by default. And we do that in etc werewulf.conf.
So you're not sharing. You're not sharing anything. Do you think
am
you're
I
sharing
not
something? No, I don't see anything.
I'm sharing it, but it's
okay.
not on
Well,
the
you're
screen.
looking at it. No one else is.
There it is.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Rose.
Yes, you're welcome.
So yes, we're in etc werewulf.conf, and we just need a new top level thing in here that is API, and then I think it's just enable. Is it enable? No, enabled. Enabled true. And then one other thing we can do while we're in here, a new feature I think in 4.6.4, is that Warewulf control configure can restart Warewulf itself, but it won't do it by default. We need to tell it what name to use. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is not required, but this just tells that Warewulf control configure command how to restart the Warewulf server. And then we're going to use this make password command to generate the hashed version of our API key. This is, again, a little bit manual right now, but we need to set an API key in a new configuration file to allow us to log into the Warewulf web interface. And I'm just entering a password here. This is the format of that file, and we're using the make password command here to hash the password that will go in here. It ends up looking like this. That goes in etc werewulf.auth.conf. So, well, with sudo. We just need a file there that says who should be allowed to log in. We've created a username admin and given it a password, but that password is hashed. So I typed it in here when make password asked for it, and it generated this configuration file for us. With that, we can just run Warewulf control configure -a, all of them, and among other things, it is restarting the Warewulf server for us because we told it how. We will do one more thing here, so I'm not switching back and forth as much. At this point, we could log into the Warewulf web interface, but I will also install our overlays. And we see right now, we have overlays that configure, it says Aptainer. This is doing, what are they called? The sub UID and sub GID user ID mapping. It's something you need for rootless Aptainer to work, so we've packaged it in an Aptainer overlay. It's configuring that for you. We're also including a cronny. This is a network time daemon client configuration. This makes it easy to tell your cluster node to get its time from, for example, the Warewulf server. And then we also have an overlay for fuzzball substrate. I didn't mention that along with PBS and Slurm and OpenHPC in general, we also have turnkey options for deploying fuzzball in a Warewulf environment here. But then there's also overlays for PBS and Slurm that configure these nodes to be PBS and Slurm nodes. So those are installed. I think that is the last thing that we will do here at the command line. So we will switch over to the web interface one more time, and I will risk showing behind the curtain for just a moment to have a bare browser open. I want this one. I think it's that one. Is it that one? Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. Because we're going to go to this URL, which you're seeing in my procedure now. But this is 9090 is the default port for Cockpit, and then Warewulf Demo 1, and I have multicast DNS support set up so that I can get it by name. But we'll go here. I'm logging in here with my server user. If I can type my password properly. And here we're just in Cockpit, and because I said /Warewulf, we're on the Warewulf Pro version of that web or side of that web interface. We don't have our API key configured yet, so we're prompted to enter that. We can just enter the username and password that we entered earlier when we were setting it up. And now we have the web interface running. We can see our node that is configured and the default profile, the image that we have available here, and the overlays that are available. You can inspect these over. Oh, you should be able to inspect these. Why is that not working? I'll reload. Okay. Oh, you know what? It's because I picked a file that is a symlink, and we have discovered a bug. I just happened to pick a bad one. That's a bug that we need to address. We will look at an actual file instead. This here shows you how a template is, can be rendered on a node. This is what it looks like when you, well, you wouldn't normally render this one on a node. This is from the host overlay, but you can see here. And then the last thing I'll demonstrate is over here in the images tab. So we have this image here, but we can also import an image from Depot. And so we'll tell it that it's an open HPC image. We're going to give it this URL. So we're going to pull it from a Docker registry from Depot. And then Warewulf Pro here. And, this is the location that you would get from Depot. So if you find the image, well, I'll just go there. We have just a few more minutes left. This will be fine. So if we're in Warewulf Pro and we look in node images, we can find the image we want. And this is the one that I'm using here. It's this Rocky Linux HPC image. And scrolled over here somewhere. If my window were wider, there we go. I can get the image from there. And then we would paste that in here. If you visit, and I'll show again here. Oh, is this the right place? Yeah. If you visit this location, portal.ciq.com/token, you are told what your username and password are. Again, I'm not going to expose that here on the stream. But the username is CIQ portal. That is, I think, a generic one. And then I will put my access token in here. And you can import an image from here. On this server, this takes a little while. So I don't think we should wait for that to be done. But this is, showing how easy it is to go from a 4.5.8 environment through some steps to a 4.6.4 environment. And then, install a few packages, add another config file in the place, and you can be doing this with a web interface. Oh man, whirlwind and under the gun there. But yeah, you have your
good faith, and you can
all
just deliver your
asterisks
faith
as well. How are we doing? Any remaining questions? Ian, any questions here about the web interface or anything that you saw here? Actually, this is a better question. Any suggestions for improving this process? What do you think?
It's pretty straightforward. All the gotchas you've outlined pretty well, and I don't think there's any way to avoid them based on what's going on under the hood.
I really wish we could find a way to fix the issue with the overlay split.
Yeah, But I mean, the thing is, it's a lot of parts, a lot of moving parts under the hood. It's a complicated process. So trying to simplify it as much as possible, and I think you've outlined that the steps needed. Um, it's a straightforward process with the caveats provided, and
As
as
long as you know what the
always,
process is.
right, check your work, right?
Yeah.
Proofread. So yeah, every time a file is modified automatically by anything, you should always look and see what's going, make sure it's looks like what you expect it to look like. Um, I'm sure we've all done it before. It's like reading license agreements. Yeah, whatever, check okay. You let it go and then it comes back and bites you later. So especially with the 4.5 to 4.6, because of the significant changes made there, definitely look through the config files and make sure everything is where it should be.
Starting in
I
4.6, we also started generating pretty full release notes for each one. And so you'll see them here at werewolf.org/docs/ and if you just go there, you can navigate. It's pretty straightforward from there. Um, uh, I highly recommend checking out the release notes between whatever you're upgrading from to whatever you're upgrading to. Um, and there's a lot of good information in there.
Yeah. Thorough. Appreciate it. We got a question from Jeff. Go ahead and put that up.
Awesome.
Thank you. Oh, hey, Jeff. Any guidance on upgrade steps from previous versions to get to 4.5.8 first?
Yeah, so there's two parts to that question. If your goal is actually to get to 4.5.8, that can be it's manual. There's we can help with it if you want to come into Slack or if you want to engage with CIQ, we can help with that. But if you're going from, and you don't need to upgrade to 4.5.8 before you upgrade to 4.6, whatever. You can go directly to 4.6 from your current configuration, and the upgrade scripts that are available, or the upgrade commands that are available in 4.6, can help you upgrade from that older version. You don't need to upgrade through 4.5.8. If you're already on 4.5 something, upgrading to 4.5.8 should be safe enough. But the 4.4 to 4.5 upgrade was a little bit was a bit of a struggle, which motivated these improvements. So I don't recommend if you're not running 4.5 something today, I don't recommend going to that. I recommend just going to 4.6.
Good point. And another one from Jeff. A student asked about that in our class. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Great.
Cool.
Any other questions?
I think maybe we're good.
Oh.
Okay, I get back. How to create a recoverable backup export before each upgrade as rollback plan.
Great. So this is something that probably would be worth us actually supporting first class with some kind of a backup or export. Right now, it's a little fragmentary, but I'll talk about what you should look into doing. And I said we wouldn't go back to the command line, but here we are. So if we can get that back up here. So the things that you need to back up is this directory, @werewolf, and then varlib werewolf. And frankly, probably just varlib werewolf overlays and maybe varlib werewolf chroots. This is where your images are stored, and this is where your overlays are. This is a temporary location. It's where the things are generated. So you probably don't need to back that up. If you really wanted to be thorough, you could just grab this whole directory. But all werewolf state will be in varlib werewolf, and then all werewolf configuration will be in @werewolf. So if you grab those two directories, you should be fine. And the biggest space in that backup will be, depending on how many nodes you have, it will either be the images, which are large individually, depending on how big your image is. And then if you are going to back up this provision directory, that can be large if you have a lot of nodes. Each individual built provisioned overlay thing in there is not well, I guess provision is large because the built images will be in there also, but your overlays can be large if you have several thousands of nodes. but you probably don't need that. You probably just need at most cheroots and definitely overlays.
Awesome. Well, I think that we are at time. We have been chatting here and getting some good information from Mr. Jonathon Anderson. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ian, for showing up too and hanging out with us and sharing your expertise. You guys can find them both in the Warewulf Slack. So just a couple of you who we saw the names, I was looking, not all of you are in the Slack. So if you have more questions or if you have things to share, you know, like the IPv6 stuff or anything that you're doing that you think might be interesting to other people in the Warewulf community, please, please, please go to, what are you writing here? Warewulf.org/help.
I think that's
Yes.
where it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a link to the Slack
good.
there.
Yes, we have links all over the place to join the Slack.
Yeah.
We would love to see you in there. Please come and join us. The technical steering committees are also available for you to join. We have a user group now, Warewulf user group, a WUG, on the second Wednesday of the month. Very exciting. So we've already done 2 now, which is awesome. So come and join us and continue to provision with Warewulf. So we're so excited. Also, if you need help, CIQ, right? This is the company that, you know, myself and Jonathon Anderson work for. We do provide training and support. And of course, you get the wonderful UI that Jonathon and the team have been working on behind the scenes to kind of ease the transition, help you get going. So we would love to chat with you, ciq.com. You can reach us there, fill out a little form. We'd love to chat with you more. And again, thank you so much for your time, both of you and everyone who's been here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rose.
Have a
Thanks,
great day.
Ian.
Thank you.